In the quiet English village of Shepton Mallet, nestled in the rolling hills of Somerset, one mystery has echoed through the centuries, an unsolved vanishing that still captures the imagination of locals and historians alike. This is the case of Owen Parfitt, a man whose disappearance in the 18th century remains one of England's oldest and most baffling enigmas. To understand the strangeness of his case, we must first understand the man himself. Owen Parfitt was no ordinary villager. In his youth, he was known for his adventurous spirit and colourful past. Rumours swirled about his exploits, stories of military service in Africa, brushes with piracy, and a reputation as a bold womanizer. Whether these tales were entirely true or embellished over time, they contributed to the complex, almost legendary aura that surrounded him. By the late 1760s, however, Owen's days of adventure were long behind him. Age and illness had taken their toll, leaving him nearly paralysed and entirely dependent on the care of his sister Mary, herself in her 80s, and a kindly neighbour named Susanna Snook. At 69 years old, Owen was confined to a chair and incapable of walking, his once daring life reduced to a slow, quiet existence. Yet, his family had an unusual history of longevity for the era. His father, John Parfitt, lived to 62, well above the average life expectancy at the time. Even more remarkable was his mother, who reportedly lived to the age of 97, an impressive feat by any standard, past or present. Despite his condition, Owen remained sharp-witted and strong-willed, a man not easily underestimated. And in a close-knit community like Shepton Mallet, where everyone knew each other and outsiders were rare, his presence was well known, which makes what happened next all the more mysterious. Owen Parfitt's final and most infamous adventure didn't take place on a battlefield or stormy sea. It happened on a quiet, sun-warmed porch in the sleepy village of Shepton Mallet. The exact year remains uncertain. Some claim it was 1763, others swear by 1768, but the core of the tale remains chillingly unchanged. It was a warm afternoon, the kind that made even the elderly want to sit outside and soak in the gentle breeze. Parfitt, aged 69 and nearly immobile from years of illness, asked to be taken outside. As we know, he could no longer walk. His sister Mary and the neighbour Susanna carefully carried him to a wooden chair on the front porch of their cottage. They wrapped him in a blanket to shield him from the wind. Across the narrow road, just a few yards away, several farm workers were going about their day. The area was quiet, but not isolated. Any unusual movement near the Parfitt home would have been noticed, especially someone approaching the paralysed man sitting alone on the porch. Mary went inside briefly to fetch a coat as the evening air started to cool. She was gone only a few minutes. When she came back out, Owen was gone. Just gone. The chair was empty and his blanket on the ground. There was no sign of a struggle, no footprints, no sounds had been heard. And most baffling of all, the nearby workers swore they hadn't seen anyone approach or leave the house. In full-blown panic, Mary called out for help. Neighbours and farmers rushed to search the area. They scoured the road, the yard, and the surrounding countryside. It was unthinkable. How could a man who couldn't walk, who could barely move, just vanish without a trace? But that's exactly what happened. The authorities were quickly notified, and they too combed the area. They questioned every villager, followed every possible lead. Even search dogs were brought in to sniff out any trail that might have been left behind. It spread beyond the village into the surrounding countryside, across forests, along riverbanks, into old buildings and forgotten paths. Still nothing. That day, heavy rainfall started and stayed, destroying any and all possible traces. We have to remember this was the late 18th century, so the police and everybody could just search to the best of their capacity. But the heavy rain washed it all. No footprints, no blood, no signs of a body being dragged or carried, no suspicious travellers. No one saw anything, no one heard a sound. Owen Parfitt had simply vanished. The lack of evidence only made things worse. How does a man who can't walk disappear in broad daylight, with people just a few yards away? As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into years, Owen Parfitt's disappearance became more than just a mystery. It became folklore. With no trace ever found, speculation flourished. Everyone had a theory. Some made sense, others not so much. One of the most discussed theories is also the simplest, that Owen was abducted. Maybe enemies from his past came calling. Maybe he had something. Money, secrets, revenge-worthy history that someone wanted. Back then, anarchy wasn't uncommon, and stories of highwaymen and thieves weren't just tales to scare children. Supporters of this theory point to how clean the scene was. No struggle, no noise. It must have been quick. planned, deliberate. But even this idea has holes. Owen couldn't walk. He couldn't run. Moving him would have taken effort, time. Surely someone would have noticed. The farm workers across the road just steps away saw nothing. Then there are the whispers, the darker, stranger explanations. Some say the devil himself came for Owen Parfitt, that something otherworldly took him from that chair in the blink of an eye. It sounds outlandish, but in a time and place where religion and superstition walked hand in hand, people listened. After all, a storm rolled in that very evening, and his sister reportedly insisted for the rest of her life that he had been taken by a force not of this world. Others spun tales of pirates dragging him off in the dead of day, hoping to squeeze secrets about buried treasure from the old sailor. As time passed, these stories only grew wilder, told and retold around fireplaces and pub tables. A third theory suggests that Owen may have staged the whole thing, that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as paralyzed as he seemed, that with help, he escaped to start a new life elsewhere. But again, he was nearly 70, weak, and dependent on others for the most basic tasks. If it was a trick, it left no trail, no note, no slip-up, just silence. Each theory has its supporters, each has its skeptics, but all have one thing in common. They can't explain the total absence of evidence, and so the legend was born. To truly grasp the chilling nature of Owen Parfitt's disappearance, you have to step into his world, a world where superstition and folklore shaped everyday life as much as fact and reason. 18th century England was a place of contradiction. Enlightenment ideals were beginning to take hold, ideas of science, logic, and evidence. But in villages like Shepton Mallet, old beliefs still ran deep. Witchcraft, spirits, curses, and other worldly forces weren't just the stuff of bedtime stories, they were serious concerns. People feared the unknown because it was unknown. So when Owen Parfitt vanished, it didn't just feel like a mystery, it felt like something unnatural, something wrong. Over time, the tale grew teeth. Owen's story became part of the village's folklore, passed on like a dark lullaby. While his story is intriguing and mysterious, and possibly dark, I'll have to burst the bubble right now. Because modern psychology offers another lens through which to view the case, one grounded in human behavior, perception, and memory. In close-knit communities, stories often evolve through oral retelling. Each generation adds its own details, sometimes unintentionally. This phenomenon, known as memory distortion or collective misremembering, can take a relatively mundane event and transform it into something far more mysterious. Imagine this. Perhaps Owen was removed from the porch by someone familiar, a friend or relative helping him inside while Mary was gone. But in the confusion of the moment and panic that followed, nobody remembered seeing it. The brain, when faced with missing information, tries to fill in the blanks. In times of fear or trauma, those mental gaps can quickly be filled with the extraordinary. Psychologists also point to our cognitive bias toward pattern and meaning. We want things to make sense. A man vanishing from a chair without witnesses doesn't make sense. But ghosts, devils, or secret revenge plots, those feel like explanations, even if they're impossible to prove. Owen's case may have started as a real mystery, but it became a legend because our minds crave closure. And when closure doesn't come, the unknown becomes a canvas for imagination. In the end, maybe what makes the Owen Parfitt mystery so enduring isn't just the absence of evidence, it's the way the human brain reacts when faced with a story it can't fully explain. Now, another point I'd like to mention is that Owen's case of vanishing may seem unique. Elderly, paralyzed man disappearing in the middle of a quiet English village. But in the broader history of mysterious disappearances, his story finds strange resonance with others who also slipped beyond explanation. Take the Flannan Isles lighthouse keepers, for example. In 1900, 3 men stationed on a remote Scottish isle disappeared without a trace. The lighthouse was found in perfect working order, food still in the kitchen, oil lamps freshly filled, but not a soul remained. The logbooks hinted at a storm and nervous behavior in the days before, but nothing explained how 3 experienced men could vanish from an isolated outpost with no witnesses and no remains. Like Owen, the keepers were in a confined space, visible, isolated, and with limited mobility. And just like Shepton Mallet, Flannan was a place where the unusual couldn't go unnoticed, yet the impossible happened. In both cases, search parties combed the area. In both cases, they found nothing, just empty spaces where people should have been. Now you might say, but maybe they jumped in the sea, and that's how they disappeared. Okay, I understand your point, but what about the strange case of Benjamin Bathurst, a British diplomat who vanished in 1809? One moment he was inspecting his carriage in a busy village in Prussia, the next he was gone. No cry for help. no sign of struggle. It was as though he stepped through a crack in reality. Bathurst was a man of status, moving through a populated area, yet no one saw what happened. Sound familiar? What ties these cases together isn't just the lack of evidence, it's the defiance of logic. How does someone vanish in plain sight, with no time, no opportunity, and no witnesses? Owen Parfitt's story may be older, but it sits comfortably alongside these other unsolved disappearances. Each case leaves behind the same hollow ache, a moment where time hiccups and someone is lost. Not to death, not to accident, but to the unknown. It's these echoes across history that remind us Owen wasn't the first to vanish without a trace, and he won't be the last. Owen Parfitt's disappearance didn't just confuse, it was haunted. Long after the search parties gave up and the whispers died down, his story remained. In Shepton Mallet, it became a legend, a ghost story, yes, but one rooted not in fantasy, but in something disturbingly real. The tale passed from one generation to the next, like a family heirloom. Then, in 1813, decades after that warm afternoon when Owen vanished, the mystery suddenly flared to life again. During routine construction in Shepton Mallet, workers dug up a human skeleton. Whispers turned to gasps. Could it finally be Owen? Theories reignited. Had he been buried in secret, murdered and hidden in plain sight? But before imaginations could run too far, the truth arrived. Medical officials confirmed the skeleton belonged not to an elderly man, but to a young woman. Just like that, Owen slipped back into the shadows. Another chance came in 1933, when more construction stirred the soil beneath the town. Hopes flickered, but this time there were no bones, no revelations, just silence. And yet, the silence never settled. Even today, over 2 centuries later, the mystery hasn't lost its grip. Owen Parfitt's disappearance isn't just a historical oddity, it's a puzzle that still lives in the minds of anyone who hears it. It inspires podcasts, online debates, TV documentaries, and endless speculation from amateur sleuths and seasoned historians alike. Some have tried to reanalyze old records with modern forensic tools. Others chase threads in forgotten archives, hoping for a spark. But the trail, if it ever truly existed, has long since gone cold. And still, we return to it. Maybe it's because this story taps into something timeless, our fascination with the unsolved, our fear of the unknown, our belief that no one should vanish without a trace. Owen Parfitt was a real man, in a real village, surrounded by real witnesses, and yet his final moments remain a blank page. That's why we still tell his story. After everything, the ghost stories, the pirates, the devil in the storm, I keep coming back to something far more human, something simple, something silent. What if Owen Parfitt never left that house? What if, in a moment of desperation or quiet rage, his sister, tired, old, and overwhelmed, did the unthinkable? Maybe it wasn't premeditated. Maybe it was a snap, a whisper of grief or resentment that spiraled too far. Maybe she just wanted peace in her final years. No more caretaking, no more burden. And while the village searched the fields and ditches, calling out his name, what if Owen was already dead, hidden in the very place they started? No one would have suspected her. She was the frail, caring sister. She raised the alarm, played the part, and the storm that night. It washed away not just clues, but the urgency. The chaos gave her time. It's not the most sensational theory, but maybe it's the most believable. Not pirates, not demons. Just one quiet act, in one quiet house. Owen Parfitt vanished without a sound, and left behind a silence that's lasted for centuries. Maybe we'll never know what really happened on that summer afternoon in Shepton Mallet, but the mystery still lingers, whispering through time. Do you believe it was something supernatural, a clever cover-up, or something else entirely? Let me know what you think happened to Owen Parfitt in the comments below. And if you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay curious. I'll see you in the next one.